So here's the thing. The market doesn't know you have these traits and you're able to provide value. You haven't shown. Not a lot of people outside your small circle know that you have these skills yet. And that's the problem. The most expensive consultants in the world are not the loudest. They're not. They're the most respected, sought after, and they're very precise. Precision requires listening. Listening is your superpower. Listening is Introverts' natural operating system. So someone told you early in your career that you needed to be more visible, more dynamic in meetings, better at work in a room, more executive presence. Now, what they were really saying is you need to perform more. You need to be more extroverted. And maybe you tried it and maybe you were great at it. Maybe you really just thought that is naturally who you were. But deep down inside, that's not who you really are. But at the end of those days, the conference, the all hands meeting, the cocktail hours, you were maxed out. You were tapped. And what I'm saying is true. You were plainly exhausted in a way that is detrimental to the people around you. At first, think it was an issue, but I'm here to tell you that exhaustion is data. It's telling you that you've been performing and playing someone else's game at the end of the day. Now, what I want to share with you today and talk to you about is your game and how you're going to maximize your super skills and how you're going to provide value to clients. As an introverted leader, you know that. You know that you have depth and you have value and you want to provide solutions to your clients, right? So the executives who has gone 20 levels deep on one domain is worth more than an executive who is consulting and giving context to general ideas, right? Generalists, they don't get compensated the same. And yes, generalists can speak confidently about everything, but they can't go into depth on those specific subjects. So the executives who are looking for that value, they pay for calm. When a client is in a crisis, a reconstruction, a regulatory problem, strategy pivot, they're looking for a strategic pivot. They want someone who's been down those paths, who has in-depth insight, and more importantly, who slows down before they speed up. And that's your game. This is where we thrive. This is where you thrive. Introverts are disproportionately skilled at depth.
I want to take a pause for a second and talk about your confidence, right? You got the experience, the results, the credibility, but when it comes to putting your voice out there, fear creeps in. Who am I to do this? Does that sound familiar? That's imposter syndrome, and it's keeping you small. My coaching is about breaking through that, helping you turn your expertise into content, conversation, and coaching that builds real influence in your industry. So if you're done hiding behind titles and ready to lead with your story, head over to connectingwithcreatives.com/coaching and let's get started. I'll see you soon.
So here's the insight I want you to sit with. So the traits that get you overlooked in corporate promotion cycles, the preference for listening before speaking, the need to process information before reacting, the discomfort with performance for its own sake are the precise traits that high-value clients respect. And those are the traits that make you as the consultant or advisor exceptional at what you do. So here's the thing. The market doesn't know you have them. They don't know. You know, and maybe a select few know that you have these traits and you're able to provide value, right? And the only difference is, like I said, you haven't shown. Not a lot of people outside your small circle know that you have these skills yet. And that's the problem. The most expensive consultants in the world are not the loudest. They're not. They're the most respected, sought after, and they're very precise. Precision requires listening. Listening is your superpower. Listening is Introverts' natural operating system, right? That's why God gave us, one mouth, 2 ears, right? And we can go on and on about things that we're passionate about. In a consulting or advisory conversation, the person who asks the right questions, they have more leverage, they have more data to provide value once they listen more, right? So the one that speaks too much and they're not listening to what the client is actually wanting, they're going to miss something. So that's an actual leverage that you can pull when rebuttaling or responding to a client, right? So your answers are going to be more polished. Introverts, particularly those who've spent years observing corporate dynamics, they're exceptional at like getting the conversation started, right? They're exceptional at questions. They are, right? Just general questions. They're exceptional at they're like lead magnets, if you will. They can get the party popping. There is a category for executive decision making that requires that very skill. Specifically, the kind of thinking partner, someone who doesn't fit well with silence or who doesn't rush to conclusions. And you need that. That is a skill that, you can ask questions, open-ended questions, and to get the answers you want to uncover to provide value and a solution. But sometimes, let me take a step back, just talking about extroverts, and there's no knock against them, but a lot of times they're just, fast, witty, which is great. But there's a lot of times there's no depth. I'm not saying all, but most of the time. So now let me connect this to the podcast specifically. So a podcast conversation is not a performance, right? It's not something that you got to put on. Just think about this. You're with someone that you want to provide value for, or potentially could be your client. So you want to learn about their business. You know what I'm saying? You're very intentional about that. So podcasting is a long form dialogue. It's a relationship starter. And introverts are naturally skilled at sustained conversations with one person, which is exactly what a great interview or solo episode is like this. This is what this requires, right? Because I had time to think, plan, and bring value to you guys with the data that I'm having from my clients, my experience. So the performing introvert who dreads the cocktail hour often thrives in 45-minute recorded conversations because the context is clear, right? It's focused. You're not all over the place, right? Trying to keep up and trying to just small things that you overthink sometimes. Did I offend them, or was that really meaningful? The questions that you ask yourself. So the depth is expected and the energy exchange is controlled. So that's why that sweet spot, 45 minutes to an hour, is sweet. So this is that medium that was designed for the way that we actually think, not the way you've been told to present, not the way you've been expected to present, right? Now they're coming into your world and you're setting frame, you're setting the expectations, you're setting and managing how you want to interact with high quality, high value people in the marketplace. So more like you, when you have to present at work, you're like, I gotta turn, I gotta do that, bring that energy. And that's not necessarily you all the time. I'm not saying that you don't have energy or you're not excited about what you're presenting on, but you would prefer to have more depth, right? So this is not a weakness, right? It's a learned skill. So now you have to unlearn to relearn what you want to do. But it has costs. Like I said, you're going to be tapped mentally, emotionally, and sometimes physically. So that energy cost is being paid every day in corporate and then having nothing left for you to build on, right? Especially when you get home, it's just not you. So the reason the podcast hasn't launched, the advisory offer hasn't been structured yet, the platform hasn't been started, is often not a lack of motivation. It's a lack of remaining energy after the performance, after you had literally 20 meetings. I had a couple clients, but that were in this space, but one in particular, they had meeting after meeting. They were very draining. It was very toxic. It was very, people dumping on this individual and felt drained. And at the end of the day was maxed and had to recharge consistently. There was no flow, if you will. So the solution is not to perform less at work. It's to choose a building methodology that doesn't require the same kind of performance, right? On your terms. That's why I love podcasting, right? And I know you love podcasting too. That's why you're listening. So because you want depth on your ride, in your workout, in between meetings, right? Because you want to learn. You crave learning in depth. So I'm here to challenge you, to empower you to start. Here's the thing. How do I build in a way that doesn't drain the same tank that my corporate role empties every day? Let me say that again. This is the cheat code. This is the question you have to ask yourself. How do I build in a way that doesn't drain the same tank that my corporate role empties at the end of the day? A podcast is an answer to that second question, right? To that question. So you record on your schedule in your environment like this, home office, in your natural mode of deep conversation. So there's nobody interrupting me, right? I'm in my office, whatever situation you have in your car or whatever's comfortable for you, find your sweet spot, right? For deep, natural conversation. So the platform builds while you recover, right? So let me give you, some practical distinction that changes the whole game. So constant visibility means showing up everywhere, okay? Posting daily, networking broadly, no depth there, having to take unnecessary trips, performing constantly at them, knowing you dislike those networking events, those cocktail hours, knowing you like those, you dislike those very much. This is an extrovert's natural advantage. So you've seen it, man, they're always thriving. People are like shaking and moving, and people that just seem to rock the room naturally. And you could tell, like, people just small talk, introverts, we don't really like small talk unless it's in depth. So for introverts, it's unsustainable and inefficient. So strategic visibility means a small number of high quality touch points that carry significant weight, right? It's very intentional. So that's why one episode a week, one guest conversation a month with someone in your network, someone that you aspire to target in the market, speak directly to your target market, one LinkedIn post that demonstrates a specific thought, leadership, insight, perspective, point of view. The compound effect of that is so valuable, but it strategically gives you the visibility you need without draining your battery. Just limitless. So let's just say the 50th episode doesn't just add one to the count, actually signals this individual has put in work and depth over time. So it signals to the algorithm, okay, there's consistency there. And it signals to everybody that's watching that is seeing that it's an audience, okay? There's something to this. They're 50 episodes in. It's saying that there's a market for that topic, for that industry, for that niche. And once you have those things and you're consistent, and that's definitely going to build up your credibility. And when people are looking at you, they're going to be thinking this individual is serious. Let's look more into them. So I like to say too, podcast episodes are like kind of like your portfolio or your resume in 2026. That's how people like, okay, how long have they been at this? Are they legit? Okay, they put up 50 shots, 50 episodes. That's a lot. So when the inbound begins, right, don't be surprised. Now, the extrovert's playbook was never yours to follow in the beginning. So you don't need to be everywhere doing everything, right? Because that's not you. You just need to be findable, credible, and consistent in the places that matter to the people who can pay for your expertise, like LinkedIn, right? Like Apple, Spotify. Your market is there. Maybe some specific platforms like Reddit or things of that nature. Like that's your lane. Don't sleep on TikTok. I've been discovering TikTok is a hack. I've been networking and bringing people on, and TikTok is a vibe. So that's a completely different game though, right? But I just wanted to reiterate that stick to your lane, stay consistent, be credible, and you're built for this. So if you want to learn more about this, the link to start building your platform, check the show notes, right? Slide in my DM on LinkedIn. Shoot me an email. Let's hop on a discovery call, and I guarantee you we can map out in that call where you're at, and I'm able to guide you next steps and give you a roadmap to get there. All right. Let me know what you guys thought. I hope this was impactful. If this sounds like something you or your colleague, family, friend that is in this position needs help, I'm your guy. All right. I'll see you guys on the next one.